We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for Coffee Connections. And let's go ahead and dive right in. Nate, what would you like to accomplish in today's Coffee Connection?
I'd like to find out more about what do you do when someone ghosts you? They say that they're all excited about working with you, and then you follow up and they don't answer.
So, on the first conversation that you have with them, you would want to get some really important information from them. It won't eliminate that from ever happening again, but it reduces the percentage of those that will. And so one of those things is are you selling B2B or B2C?
B2B.
Okay. So in B2B, what you're looking for is um, you're looking for their biggest challenge that they're facing in any area of their business. So almost as soon as you can, you get their biggest challenge. So Anita, in getting this out this is a problem everybody's got. Like everybody's got this problem. This is not unique. This is very common. And so when you get this out to everybody, when you get this out to everybody, you want to say, Nate had a question on, how do you stop ghosting people? And you want to put that out to everybody who's attended, or invited to attend on this one so they can go ahead and get this. And then encourage them to share this with other people too. So that's one question that you want to get. When they give you their biggest challenge, Nate, you go, put your right hand to your chin and go, that's interesting. Even if you're doing it on the phone, you always do that because it slows you down so it doesn't sound like scripting. So you go, that's interesting. And be genuinely interested, obviously, in what their biggest challenge is. And then say, that's interesting. Tell me more. And then listen and take really good notes. Now, any ideas, Nate, on why that will help reduce being ghosted?
Well, it gets them thinking about the biggest challenge and what they're
Right,
going to do about it.
right,
Lets them know that I'm interested in them.
right. So, right. So it gets them. So people are motivated on two things: avoiding pain and gaining pleasure. And based on psychologists, they say people do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. You don't want to ask them what their pain is. You ask them, what would be the biggest challenge that you're facing in any area of your business? Okay. Now, Life Masteries Institute has a whole bunch of stuff here. To all right. So they have a system, and here's the questions that they will have, and so they have software that does this, that tracks it. And so they'll go ahead and what's the biggest challenge? And then after you get one, you might get two. Say, do you have any other challenges? And then after that, then depending on, so you can get most of this, not all of it, but most of this can be filled out in 14 minutes. So the more information you get from them, the lower the chance they're ghosting you. So a lot of times, like what we're learning in the 530 grid, so when we look at this, so box 4, ask key questions. So there's a 30-minute strategy session that it has three parts. The first 3 minutes that you have with somebody, those are going to be, it's almost like a date. What's the goal of the date? The first goal of the date is to get them where they're interested in having a second date with you. Hey, Chris, we're not talking about, we're talking, Nate asked a great question. How do you prevent people from ghosting you? So that's what we're talking about. But so Nate, on that, the first goal, so the first 3 minutes of the 30-minute strategy session, The first 3 minutes is to get them interested in you. The way to get them interested in you is to be interested in them. So the first 3 minutes will go ahead and when you ask questions in the first 3 minutes that get them to say that they're interested in me, there's a less likelihood of being ghosted. Does that make sense, Nate?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what you can do is you can also go ahead and then say, I'm just curious, like, what would be the biggest, like, if somebody, anyone, so you have to say it just like that. If someone, anyone could help you in any area of your business or life. Now, what I'm doing is expanding it out to where I'm not just interested in finding out something about them, but their whole life. You're giving them an option. So if someone, anyone, you're not saying you're not saying you're the one doing it. You just say, if someone, anyone could help you in any area of your life, what would you love help on? Now, this is designed not to sell something. It is designed to understand this person at a very deep level, which helps you to sell things. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is to understand the person you're talking to. So people will ask me when I do this, people will say, so are you selling something? Sometimes they'll ask, and I'm like, nope, I'm trying to get to know you better. When do you use this, Mark? I use it all the time. When my 7 kids were younger and teenagers and they were dating somebody new, they'd come, literally, this is true stories. Normally, teenagers aren't real fond of their parents knowing and, prying into their business. But my kids would come home with their new person they're dating and they would say, hey, Dad, can you do that really cool thing? And I would do this cool thing on them. So it works in anything, everything, because it shows that you're interested. So you say, so somebody, anybody could help you in any area of your business or life. What would you love help with? And you say it just like that, whimsical. It can't sound scripted. It's not going through a checklist. You're just curious. You're interested in them. Make sense?
Yes.
And then you do the same thing. You put your right hand to your chin and go, that's interesting. Tell me more. And then you listen really deeply to what they're saying. These two things, you get these 2 pieces of information. You get these 2 pieces of information, and you probably reduce being ghosted by probably 70 to 90%. Because every time you leave a message, you say, hey, I wanted to follow up with you on, and then you repeat their biggest challenge and what they'd love help with. Their biggest challenge, they've had it for probably most their whole life. So often, biggest challenge is pain, and what they'd love help with is pleasure. Not always, but often. Biggest challenge is they're more motivated to move forward. You connect your product or service to their biggest challenge or what they'd love help with, and that's going to go ahead and hook them. That's going to draw them in, and that's going to create an interest because they're going to connect that they're going to connect that pain with you helping them solve that pain because you're the one that interested in it. So what you do is you build what's called a conceptual bridge between their pain and your products and services. And that's going to go ahead and increase the likelihood of the sale, and it's going to increase the likelihood of them not ghosting you. Does that make sense?
It does.
Questions on that, Nate?
What if you ask them anything about anything in their life and they start going on about their divorce or something, not related?
Yeah. Typically, you just go ahead and flow with it.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, you don't want to spend. So again, this is 3 minutes, so you're getting 3 minutes of information.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first part of the 30-minute strategy session is 3 minutes. The next is 11. So the first 3 minutes gets them interested in you. They want another date. They want another conversation there because you're interested in them. The next 11 minutes is you're going to get them even more interested in you, Nate. And you're going to determine in the next 11 minutes if you want to date them, if you want to pursue them. So in 14 minutes, you can determine if they're a good prospect for you. And they'll be intoxicated by it. It literally is hypnotizing. So some of those questions on the 11 minutes, I'm just curious, like how many hours are you working and how many would you like to work? You might ask them what their wow income goal and their minimum income goal, or the wow sales goal or minimum income goal. If you ask them what they earn, often they won't tell you. They often won't tell you because it's personal information. But if you ask them their wow income goal, so the way I ask, I just say, so like, what would be your wow income goal? What would be something that would absolutely totally rock your life, totally excite you over the next 12 months? And then you ask them what their minimum income goal. So this will often tell you if you have an idea of what your, what the income of somebody is, and that tells you, can they work with you? Can they afford working with you? So minimum income goal is typically what they're currently earning. Not always, but often it is.
Mhm.
Then what I'll do is I'll ask them, and again, this is through Life Masteries Institute. They have courses on training on how to understand personalities. And I say, kind of a strange question, but one that helps me is, which of these four shapes would you tend to like the most? A cube, a pyramid, a wavy line, or ball? And I go 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And which of these four things cause you the most frustration in any area of your life? And then out of order, out of control, first, second, third, and fourth. And I get through that. And so this will typically take about 7 minutes. And so I have roughly 4 minutes left in the 11 minutes, or in the 14 minutes rather. So I have 14 minutes to go through this. Now, this here, it took me 18 and a half years to figure this out. What this does is this reveals to me how coachable somebody is, meaning, are they open to suggestions, input, ideas, thoughts? And so if you have an innovative product or service, something that requires somebody to be open-minded, or if you just want to work with cool people, this is great. And so what I do is I'll go ahead and say, 1 to 10, how would you rate your coachability? 10 being the highest, 1 being not. Then here, what I do in this section is I go, if you could change one thing in any area of your life, what would you change? So that's what I use this field for. What that does is that they get an option to say whatever they want to say. So what I'm doing is I'm rapidly building rapport with the individual. And then I say 1 to 10, how would you rate your listening skills? 10 being the highest, sales skills. And then I say sense of urgency. I don't use these generally. I might, but generally I don't. Sense of urgency, I say 1 to 10, how would you rate your sense of urgency? And then I say, when you are urgent, what causes you to have a high sense of urgency? And then I might, why do you think that is? So sometimes when you're drilling deep, you have to ask why. They'll tell you and you say, why do you think that is? I just love getting things done. Why do you think that is? Is that your parents or how you're trained or your personality? So what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out what causes that person to have a high sense of urgency. And then 1 to 10, how much of a procrastinator would you say you are? 10 being the highest, 1 not at all. Then I say, so if you were to procrastinate, why would you procrastinate? And then what I do is then I say, then I go ahead and say, if somebody was coaching you or mentoring you, and they thought you're procrastinating, how would you like them to respond? And then they tell me. And then I say, if they did that, would it work? So I get all that information, and all that information is very helpful in them not ghosting you and being able to know if your product or service is the right solution for them. And then this is the magical part to determine if they're coachable, if they're open to new ideas. I say, so if if somebody said to you the following, how would you respond? And then I jam their senses and say, so if somebody said you were 2.5 on coachability, a 1 on listening, a 3 on sales skills, 2 on sense of urgency, and you're a 10 on procrastination, if somebody said that to you, how would you respond? And then I write that in here. And so then the rating is, if they're really curious and they say, oh, I'd be interested, if they said I was a 2, I'd be interested. I ask questions. That's high code. That's high. That tests somebody, it shows somebody they're highly, interested. They're open to ideas and suggestions and criticism. So those are typically fun people because they're growing. If they say, I had one person say, I'd never talk to the person again. I'm like, okay, that's fine. If they say it depends on who's giving me the criticism, or saying that. It depends. It's about a 5. So people that are highly coachable, highly open, again, this question took me 18 and a half years to figure out. I'm not the sharpest tool in the tool shed. So, but it's really powerful. And this is all can be done in 14 minutes. If I feel that I have a solution for them, then I take the next 16 minutes to take all this data that they've given me. So the personalities alone, once you identify somebody's personality, their strengths, weaknesses, what they like, what they don't, turns them off, turns them on, if they're married, who they're married to, conflict of marriage, what to say, when to say it, how to say it. Understand more about them in 17 seconds, because that's how long it takes you to do this here. You know more about them in 17 seconds than they know about themselves. And so Life Masteries Institute asked me years ago to put together a course on this. So there's a 12-week course or something that's available through Life Masteries that you can go through on the personality stuff. And it's absolutely magical. Tom Kuhn's most recent past president, Century 21, he went through the course. He had 140,000 sales agents in over 70 different countries. And he said, this was after he retired from there. He said, Mark, if I was president, I'd make all of my 140,000 people go through this. He said, it was absolutely the most amazing course in the world. He said, I learned so much about myself. He says, not only is it the most thorough course that I've ever been through on disc, everything else. He said, not only is it the most thorough course, he said, it's the fastest and simplest to learn that I've ever seen. And you don't need, you just ask questions. You don't need technology to do it. And so that helps you to understand it. So again, Anita will get you, or there'll be something in the podcast around you can click on that to get information on how to go through that podcast. Another great course that has personalities. I actually did it with Tom and then Peter Miles, who's the most recent past board member of past president of Rolls-Royce, past board member of BMW. So the three of us did a podcast or did a course on leverage, and that's through Life Masteries Institute as well. I don't make any money on that. That's all, everything that you either give or put into that, all goes to Life Masteries and all the great causes that they do. And so that's a really cool course. I learned so much in that course. Makes sense, Nate?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else you want to accomplish today, Nate?
No, I got a lot to think about on this one.
Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anita, anything you got that you'd like to accomplish? You're on mute.
I had a question I was going to ask and didn't write it down, so now I forgot what it was.
Copy that. All right. So, Nate, let's see. Have you looked into doing the business X-ray, Nate?
I glanced at it. I haven't looked into it deeply. No.
Yeah, I would do that. Based on the questions you're asking, you would gain so much benefit from that, and it would help you. And so, the business X-ray, what that does is it goes through 3 dimensions in your business, 9 major areas, 7 systems, looks at over 40 areas of your business and life, looks at what you're doing right, little tweaks you could do to improve. It looks at the 4 phases that every business goes through, and must go through to get the business running without them. So they really own a company, not just a job. And so it does all of that. And it includes a 1-hour interview that somebody goes through and they gather up all the information, and then you get a full report, and then there's a one-on-one review. I had the privilege of doing a review on a business owner a number of years ago. And at the end, I asked him, after I did the review on him, I said, do you have any questions? And he said, yeah, Mark, I'm really ticked off. He said, I wish I'd have known you guys a year ago. And I said, okay, why is that? And he said, Mark, I went ahead and spent over $40,000 on having a company come in and analyze my business. And he said, I learned more from the $285 business X-ray than I did the 40,000. And so it's just like, Nate, there's a million things you want to do. in business, 2 million things other people want you to do, and 10 million things you could be doing, and they're all good, right? So the problem in business today is not finding good. Like there's so much good out there. The challenge is, the hard part is finding the great. Like, what are the great things you should be doing? And the business x-ray will help you find the great things. And it's not a business plan, and it's not coaching. It's not those. It's the most thorough assessment I've seen anywhere on the planet. And it's so efficient and so clean in what it does and going through everything. I think you'd gain a lot based on a number of things you've shared. I think you'd gain a lot of benefit from it, Nate.
Okay.
Super. All right. If you're listening to the rebroadcast of this, if you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate. Share this with other people, right? I mean, we've all been ghosted. And so what you do is when you call people, you're leaving voicemails on biggest challenge, what they'd love help, what they like to change about themselves, or any of that information, what their WOW income goal, number of hours they're working. So whatever you get, even if you only get their biggest challenge, if that's the only thing you get, you just leave that and say, hey, I was following up with that, had a couple ideas, and then you repeat back their biggest challenge. So Nate came up with a gold mine of a question today. Hopefully that was helpful. Pass this podcast along to other people. And if you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300. Outside the U.S., 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye. See you, everybody.